I sold my home and Tesla because my girlfriend faked cancer and asked for financial help. Then I exposed her and watched rot her in prison. If this story moved you, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you love emotional, powerful stories like this one, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, please. You never forget the moment your reality fractures. For me, it started on a Tuesday night, 11:13 p.m. to be exact. I remember because I was half asleep on the couch, the Netflix "Are you still watching?" screen glowing blue in the dark like a quiet accusation. My phone buzzed once, just once. I almost didn't check it. But something in my gut pushed me. It was her name. Emily. My girlfriend of nearly a year. Sweet, beautiful Emily, with her sunflower dresses and laughter that could warm a room. She wasn't the type to call at midnight. In fact, she had a strict bedtime ritual involving lavender tea, jazz music, and 20 minutes of reading a poetry book she always left in her kitchen. So when her name lit up my screen, I felt a quiet sense of panic. I answered on the second ring. Emily. Her voice was barely a whisper. Liam. Something in the way she said my name, shaky, raw, like it hurt to speak, told me this wasn't a casual check-in. I sat up straighter, pulling the blanket off my legs. What's going on? Are you okay? She didn't answer immediately. I could hear her breathing, short and uneven, like she'd been crying for a while. I went to the doctor today, she finally said. The words felt like stones dropping into a still pond. Yeah, I replied cautiously. Why? Did something happen? There was silence on the other end. Not the kind that stretches awkwardly, but the kind that builds suspense like something awful is about to happen in a horror movie. I could almost feel her pulse through the phone. They found something, a lump, in my chest. My heart stopped. Jesus, Emily, what kind of lump? They think it's cancer. They ran some tests. I get the results in a few days, but they sounded concerned. I don't remember what I said next. Something useless, probably something like, "We'll get through this," or, "It might not be," as if words could cure cancer. I remember her voice cracking. I remember the dull ache in my stomach. I remember staying on the phone with her until 3 a.m., just listening to her breathe, sometimes sob, sometimes just sit in silence. She fell asleep while I was still whispering soft reassurances she wouldn't remember by morning. That night I didn't sleep. And that was the night my life began to unravel, thread by invisible thread. The next morning, I drove across town to her apartment. She lived in a cozy place on the 3rd floor, the kind with creaky wooden floors and a balcony full of overgrown herbs she swore she'd use someday. When she opened the door, her face looked puffy, her eyes red-rimmed and tired. She collapsed into my arms the second I stepped inside. Over the next few days, we were a mess of tests, Google searches, and silent waiting. She canceled her photography gigs. I started working fewer hours. I'd come over every day with soup or fresh flowers, or just a hug that lasted longer than it needed to. A week later, she called me from the clinic parking lot. "It's real," she whispered. "Stage 2. Invasive ductal carcinoma." I couldn't breathe. I'd never known anyone with cancer. I didn't know what to say or how to act or what came next. But I didn't need to think about it. The only thing I knew with absolute clarity was this. I was not going to let her go through this alone. She was scared. I could feel it deep in my chest. She was trying to act brave, to joke about how she might get a cute wig, but I could see the cracks forming behind her eyes. Later that night, as she lay curled up against me, she told me she didn't want to go through traditional chemotherapy. "I can't, Liam. I've read too many horror stories. I don't want to be hooked to a machine in a cold hospital room. I want something different. Something healing." She'd been researching clinics in Arizona that specialized in holistic cancer treatment. Herbal therapies, heat treatments, emotional wellness, nutrition-based healing. It sounded out there like a Whole Foods ad on steroids, but when I looked into it, there were dozens of testimonials, success stories, glowing praise. It gave her hope. And it wasn't covered by insurance. The first phase of treatment was $23,000. She showed me the invoice with shaking hands. I remember staring at it, the numbers dancing across the page, making me nauseous. She didn't ask me directly, but I saw it in her eyes. The unspoken plea. The desperation. "I know it's a lot," she whispered. "I would never ask you for help if it wasn't life or death. It's funny, people like to think we're all logical creatures. That we'd never do something crazy without thinking it through. But in love, logic is the first casualty." I didn't even blink. The next day, I emptied my savings account. That bought us $7,000. The day after that, I sold my Tesla. My pride and joy. I'd worked 5 years for that car. Midnight silver, full self-driving package, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Gone. I sold it for $56,000. I paid the clinic $23,000. The rest went into her flights, her Airbnb near the treatment center, and her special diet plan. Emily cried when I handed her the check. "Liam, you're saving my life." Those 5 words, so simple, made every sacrifice feel worth it. She left for Arizona the following week. We stood at the airport for a long time. She wore a beanie and an oversized hoodie, no makeup, and a scarf around her neck, saying she didn't want the other passengers to worry if she looked sick. I kissed her forehead. "I love you," I said. She smiled. "I love you more." As she walked away, I told myself this was temporary. A few months. A blip in our story. She'd come back, healed, whole, and we'd move forward. I didn't know that as she passed through the security line, she wasn't crying because she was scared or sick. She was crying because she had just pulled off the con of a lifetime. The first few weeks were a blur of phone calls and text messages. She sent photos of herself with IVs in her arms, of the clinic grounds, a peaceful retreat-like property with mountains in the background and cozy cottages lined with cactus plants. "Today was rough," she'd text. "But the staff here are angels." I'd stay up late, researching cancer diets, looking into herbs and supplements, trying to be part of the process even if I couldn't be there physically. She said she didn't want me to visit. That she needed solitude to heal. I understood. Or thought I did. We FaceTimed sometimes. She looked tired, but beautiful. She'd cover the camera when she felt too sick, but her voice always brought me comfort. I bought a small whiteboard and stuck it to my fridge. Days until Emily's remission, 103. Every morning, I'd erase the number and subtract 1. Counting down. Counting on love. But slowly, something began to feel off. It started with a photo. She posted it on Instagram. A selfie, standing on the edge of a rocky cliff, the sun setting behind her. She looked radiant, healthy even. The caption read, "No signal up here but totally worth the climb." Climb? She was supposed to be weak, nauseous, in and out of treatment. I stared at the photo for minutes. Then I checked the timestamp. It was taken the same day she said she spent 6 hours in a detox chamber. I told myself I was being paranoid. But once doubt takes root, it grows like wildfire. I started noticing more. She never showed me receipts. When I asked about the name of her doctor, she said he was off-grid and didn't want to be contacted. Her Airbnb reservation couldn't be confirmed, said she booked under a friend's account. The clinic? She said they didn't list their patient names online due to privacy laws. The excuses piled up like sandbags around the truth. And then one night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I reverse image searched one of the photos she sent me. The one of her with the 4 drip. It came up immediately. Not Emily. Not even recent. It was from a blog post dated 3 years ago, written by a real cancer survivor named Hannah from Chicago. My stomach dropped through the floor. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I opened a new folder on my computer. I labeled it, Emily Investigation. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid boyfriend, the controlling man with trust issues. But when love starts to feel like a riddle, the heart still hopes while the brain begins its quiet investigation. The next morning after I discovered the reverse image match, I sat staring at the photo again. I'd seen that 4 image dozens of times. I'd zoomed in, studied the tiny details of the medical room, imagined her lying there, brave. It had meant something. Now, It meant deception. But I needed more than one photo. More than doubt. More than whispers in the dark. So I made a list. I spent the next few days quietly collecting every message, receipt, email, and voice memo she had ever sent me. I combed through our text conversations, dates, locations, timelines, and I noticed things that didn't add up. On March 22nd, she said she was undergoing silent rest therapy and couldn't talk for 48 hours. But that same day, her Spotify profile showed her actively listening to a public playlist titled Party Vibes. 2 days later, she messaged me in a panic. "Babe, my blood pressure dropped so low today I fainted. The nurse said I need additional monitoring. This place is so expensive. I feel like a burden." I replied instantly, offering to send more money. But here's the thing, I didn't. Not right away. I waited. And during that time, I received no update. No emergency. No hospital. No calls. 2 days later, she casually texted, "Today I did sunrise yoga and finally slept for 4 hours straight. Progress." Progress? Sunrise yoga? The moment felt like glass cracking beneath my feet. Everything I thought I knew about Emily, the woman I fell in love with, suddenly felt artificial. Performed. I needed answers. Real ones. So I booked a ticket. Sedona, Arizona. The place she swore she was staying for treatment. When I landed, I didn't even know where to start. She hadn't given me an address, just mentioned the name of the clinic, which was conveniently vague. Desert Wellness Healing Center. I Googled it. Nothing. No official listings. No medical registrations. Just one page. A bare-bones website with glowing testimonials and a contact form. I called the number listed. No one picked up. I called again. Nothing. Something wasn't right. I decided to drive. If this place existed, someone in town had to know it. I went into juice bars, yoga studios, herb shop. I asked casually. No one had heard of it. Not once. Not a single person could tell me where Desert Wellness was. On the second day, I got lucky. I walked into a cafe and showed the barista Emily's Instagram photo, the one with the cliffs behind her. The woman squinted. "Oh yeah, that's Cathedral Rock. It's a big hiking spot around here." Cathedral Rock. Hiking. So I went there. And I found a hiker, young guy, camera around his neck, who said he recognized Emily. She'd been there a few weeks ago. She was with a couple of friends, he told me. They were loud, drinking White Claws and taking selfies. Thought they were influencers or something. My stomach twisted. Drinking? With friends? Emily had told me she couldn't keep down water. That she was too weak to walk. That she was going through body radiation therapy and slept 12 hours a day. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from her. "Hi baby, can you send another 2K? The supplements are so expensive. I hate asking again." I stared at the screen, my pulse thudding in my ears. Then I took a screenshot. And I called a lawyer. Betrayal feels like an earthquake. It begins with a tremble. Just one cracked photo, one strange story. But then it swells. And when it hits full force, it doesn't just destroy your love for someone, it shatters the version of yourself who believed in them. I flew back from Sedona 2 days after finding out the truth. On the plane, I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was hollow, like my heart had been scraped out and replaced with confusion. I kept thinking, how could she lie about cancer? How could she look me in the eye, cry in my arms, and fake it all? But when someone you love turns out to be a liar, your grief becomes a kind of storm. And mine was just beginning to thunder. I spent the next week preparing. I spoke to an attorney, explained the situation, and laid out every piece of evidence I had: emails, texts, voice messages, fake invoices, reverse-searched photos. My lawyer confirmed that if Emily truly falsified medical records, impersonated clinics, and manipulated funds under fraudulent pretenses, it wasn't just unethical. It was criminal. Fraud. Wire fraud. Emotional abuse. Maybe worse. Still, I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted answers. So I waited until she returned. She texted me on a Sunday night. "Back home, baby, finally. I'm so exhausted. Can't wait to see you and snuggle on the couch like old times. My hands shook as I typed. I'll come over in the morning. Got something for you. Her reply was instant. Oh, gifts? You're spoiling me again. She added 3 heart emojis. The next morning, I stood outside her apartment door, holding a thick manila folder in my hand. My heart was hammering. I wasn't even sure what I was going to say. But I knew I had to confront her, to see her face as her lies crumbled. She opened the door smiling, wrapped in a hoodie with her hair in a loose bun. Liam, she squealed, throwing her arms around me. I didn't hug back. When I pulled away, she blinked. What's wrong? I walked past her, set the folder on her kitchen counter, and flipped it open. Inside, all the evidence. Chronologically ordered. Marked. Highlighted. She stared at it. I know everything, Emily, I said calmly. You never had cancer. For the first time, she didn't speak. Her eyes scanned the contents. Printouts of our texts, the real Instagram post, the image match, the Airbnb record showing she'd never left town for more than a weekend. The screenshots of her partying at Cathedral Rock. Her lips parted. And then, as if possessed by some other soul entirely, she started laughing. Jesus, Liam, she said, shaking her head. You really went all out with this detective crap, didn't you? I stood frozen. She wasn't scared. She wasn't crying. She wasn't ashamed. She was smirking. You have no idea how exhausting it is pretending to be sick for almost a year, she sighed, walking to her fridge and pulling out a smoothie. But I'll give it to you, you bought it all. You're really that nice. Why? I whispered. She leaned against the counter, sipping her drink, completely unfazed. Because you were easy, she said. Because you wanted to be the hero. And I needed the money. I stared at her, stunned. So the whole thing. The clinic, the treatments, the bald cap. Bought the cap online, she said with a wink. The clinic's website? I made that in a weekend. Canva's amazing. Honestly, I thought you'd catch on sooner. I felt like vomiting. You stole from me, I said. She rolled her eyes. Relax. You gave me the money. Love comes with sacrifice, remember? That sentence was a match to gasoline. I snapped. You're a sociopath, I said coldly. And I've already spoken to a lawyer. Her face changed. She blinked once. Her jaw stiffened. What? I have records of everything. Voice messages. Screenshot. Even recordings. What you've done is fraud, Emily. You lied about a terminal illness and manipulated money out of me. That's not a breakup, that's a felony. She laughed again, but this time it was thinner. Less confident. You wouldn't. I pulled out my phone and played a voice clip. Her message from 2 weeks ago. I just can't take this anymore, Liam. My white cell count dropped so low they almost admitted me again. The bills are getting worse. I don't know what I'll do without you. She paled. I also recorded this conversation, I added. That's when the panic flickered in her eyes. She reached for my hand, her voice suddenly sweet again. Manipulative. Liam, come on. You're not really going to report me, are you? We can just talk this out. I'll pay you back. I'll do anything. I stepped back. It was too late for apologies. Too late for fake tears. I looked her dead in the eyes. You can talk to the police. And then I walked out. 3 days later, she was arrested at a local cafe after accepting a fake check I offered her in a staged meeting. The whole event was coordinated with the police. She came in smiling, ordered a matcha latte, and slid the envelope into her purse like she'd done nothing wrong. They cuffed her 15 minutes later. She screamed, called me names, said I was ruining her life. But the truth was, she had already ruined mine, and that of the other men she'd done this to. Because yes, Emily had a record. A private investigator hired by my attorney found 2 similar scams in her past. One in Oregon, another in Miami. Both involved emotional manipulation, fake medical conditions, and large sums of money. None of the men ever pressed charges. But I wasn't going to be her third silent victim. People say revenge is a dish best served cold. But they never tell you how heavy it feels when you finally lay it on the table. The arrest wasn't the end, it was just the first ripple in what became a public unraveling of Emily's perfectly curated life. Within 24 hours, her mugshot was circulating online. Her Instagram disappeared. So did her TikTok, her photography page, and all her glowing wellness posts that had once convinced strangers she was a bright light in the world. In court, she didn't look like the girl I once fell in love with. The confident, beautiful, free-spirited artist I had adored was gone. In her place stood a woman in a gray jumpsuit, eyes hollow, expression stony. I sat in the courtroom every day. Not because I enjoyed watching her suffer, but because I needed closure. I needed to see the truth on full display, in public, where no one could deny it anymore. I wanted her to face what she had done, not just to me, but to every person she had used. Her defense team tried to twist the narrative. They said she was mentally unwell, that she believed she was sick, that the trauma of her childhood, some long, rambling tale about neglect, caused her to develop delusional behavior patterns. But the evidence was too strong. Screenshots of her admitting the lie. Her digital paper trail. The fake clinic website registered in her name. Bank transfers under false pretenses. Recordings of her manipulating me for money. And testimony, not just mine, but two others who came forward after hearing my story go public. One of them, a man named Jason, flew in from Miami. He stood at the witness stand, eyes wet, voice shaking, and said, "She told me she had leukemia. I gave her everything, my savings, my grandmother's ring. She disappeared after 5 months." That was the moment I realized something. Emily didn't just scam people for money. She fed on love. She found people who had good hearts, who couldn't say no to pain, and turned their compassion into her currency. That was her real sickness. After 2 weeks of hearings, the verdict came in. Guilty. Fraud. Forgery. Criminal impersonation. Emotional abuse under aggravated circumstances. The judge didn't blink as he sentenced her to 7 years in prison, no parole for the first 4. She sat motionless. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. But as they led her away in handcuffs, her eyes met mine. And for a brief second, the mask cracked. I saw fear. Not the kind you fake when you're manipulating someone. The real kind. But I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just nodded once, more to myself than to her. Closure. I had finally closed the book on her. But the thing about justice is that it doesn't heal you, it just removes the infection so the healing can begin. The damage she left behind was still mine to clean up. My home was gone. I'd sold it to pay for a fantasy. I was living in a rented studio apartment with stained carpets and a mini fridge. My credit score was in shambles. The Tesla? Probably being driven by some dentist in Arizona by now. But the worst part was the trust. I didn't just lose money. I lost my faith in people. I stopped opening up. Stopped dating. Stopped believing anyone who said, "You can trust me." And maybe that was the real prison I had to break out of. I started small. I went to therapy. I joined online forums for victims of financial abuse. I shared my story in safe spaces. And eventually, I was invited to speak at a small support group for men who had been emotionally manipulated. I expected 10 people. There were 60. That night, I told them everything. Not just the scam, but the way it made me feel stupid, broken, ashamed. And when I finished, the room didn't laugh. They stood up and clapped. And for the first time in almost 2 years, I didn't feel like a fool. I felt like a survivor. That night, I walked home under a dark sky, cold air biting at my skin, but my chest felt warm. I wasn't alone. And I wasn't done. Healing isn't a straight road. It's not a light switch you flip after trauma ends. It's a winding path, twisting, uphill, and often lonely. There were days I'd wake up feeling okay. And by lunch, I'd be consumed with guilt, or anger, or that old familiar question. How could I not have seen it? But over time, I learned something important. Being fooled by love doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And Emily? She wasn't powerful. She was desperate. A parasite that preyed on good hearts because she lacked one herself. That realization changed everything. After the trial, I avoided the media frenzy. Her case made headlines. Photographer scams multiple men with fake cancer plot, they called it. Her mugshot was splashed across every local news site. I even got a call from a national morning show. They wanted an exclusive. I said no. I didn't want to be known as the guy who got conned. I wanted to be known as the guy who survived it and helped others do the same. So, I took that pain and built something from it. 6 months later, I launched a small blog called Hearts Deceive. At first, it was just a way for me to write everything I'd been through, like a journal I made public. But something amazing happened. People started writing back. Emails poured in from men, women, even teenagers, all saying the same thing. I thought I was the only one. No one believed me. They told me I was stupid, but your story made me feel seen. Some were victims of financial scams. Others had experienced emotional abuse, fake identities, stolen trust, secret double lives. Different stories, same betrayal. Before long, Hearts Deceived turned into a support network. We hosted Zoom calls. We brought in legal experts to teach people how to document emotional fraud. I even partnered with a counselor to provide therapy referrals. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped seeing myself as a victim. I started seeing myself as someone who made it out. Someone who walked through fire. And came out forged. Meanwhile, Emily's fall from grace was complete. In prison, she had no access to the internet, no likes, no followers, no curated image to hide behind. Her old friends? Gone. Her reputation? Destroyed. But karma wasn't done with her. About a year into her sentence, it came out that she had scammed not only romantic partners, but even a crowdfunding campaign for a child with leukemia. She had created a fake GoFundMe page, used stock images of a child, and funneled donations into her own account. The platform shut it down once the truth came out. The remaining funds were donated to an actual pediatric hospital. And Emily? That new fraud added 2 more years to her sentence. When I read the news, I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I felt nothing. Because by then, I had let her go. One day, almost 2 years after she was locked up, I received a letter. From her. I recognized her handwriting immediately, the cursive loops, the little hearts she put over her eyes. I held it in my hand for a long time before opening it. Inside was a 2-page letter, handwritten, no return address. Liam, I've had a lot of time to think. Prison has a way of showing you who you are when the masks come off. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for what I made you feel about yourself. I didn't fake cancer because I hated you. I did it because I hated myself. I was scared, broken, and addicted to the feeling of being wanted. You gave me love I didn't deserve. And I turned it into poison. I know I can't fix the past. I just wanted you to know. You were good. You were kind. And I hope you still are. T. Here was no apology for the money. N. O offer to pay me back. N. O accountability beyond abstract regret. Read it once. T. Hen I burned it. T. Because closure doesn't come from the people who hurt you. T comes from deciding they no longer control the way you live. Fast forward to now. It's been 3 years since the scam. I've rebuilt my life from scratch. I live in a modest but cozy home, not the modern condo I had before, but this one is filled with warmth and books and plants I actually manage to keep alive. I don't own a Tesla anymore. But I own peace. And that's more valuable than any luxury. I've learned how to love again, slowly, carefully. I met someone kind. Someone who didn't fall for me because I was a rescuer. Someone who saw me, not what I could give. And most importantly, I've learned how to trust myself again. Because that's what scammers steal the most, not money, not time, not even love. They steal your ability to believe in your own instincts. But I got that back. One truth at a time. Sometimes I get messages from people who saw my story online. They ask me what they should do, how to move on, how to get revenge, how to stop feeling so broken. I tell them this. You won't wake up one morning and feel healed. You won't suddenly forget the lies or the pain. But one day you'll realize that their power ended the moment you chose not to stay silent. And in that silence, you'll find your own voice again. The one they tried to take, but never truly owned. If this story moved you, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you love emotional, powerful stories like this one, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, please.